Ay 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 ay.
Ay, 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 ay.
Greetings, all of my friends, relations, and canoe family members. My name is Ron Tso. I'm the safety officer or the safety chairman for this year's canoe journey at Lummi Indian Nation. And today we're going to be discussing and talking about safety concerns for the canoe families as they continue their journey for this year and for years to come. Today we're gracious to be on the beaches and shores of the 2003 sponsors of the canoe journey, the Tulalip Indian tribe. Just to give a little background as to who I am and what I'm about, I'm Navajo, from the Navajo Nation, and I've been up here since 1978. I'm a canoe paddler with the Autumn Rose Canoe Club, paddling both the war canoes and the outriggers. And in 2003 was my first journey with the canoe journey with my elder, Smitty Hilaire, who asked me to participate. Both myself and my son participated in that, and I've been in and out of most of these journeys throughout the past years based upon what work schedule I have. I also work for the Department of Homeland Security, Immigration and Customs Enforcement. I'm assigned to our Air and Marine Unit, and I've had extensive training in safety and boating procedures out here on the Puget Sound. And I've been in this capacity for a number of years, and I've had various training in first aid, safety, EMT certified. So some of the things I'm going to be talking about today are based upon my experience of being out there in the water, being a paddler, and being exposed to the elements that are out there. The skipper of your canoe is the main person that you're going to have to be talking to, because he sets the stage for everything. His responsibilities, he knows what they are, and he knows what he needs to do. And today, all I'm going to do is give those of you who are watching this taping an idea of what can be expected, what is needed to be done, and how you as a participant in here will have some knowledge as to what you need to do. Okay, one of the things we're going to be talking about now is flotation safety devices, PFDs, or personal flotation devices. And that's exactly what they are. They're personal flotation devices. In order for them to be used and correctly used, you have to put them on properly. And they have to be on in order to work. But being a canoe puller, we all know that they obstruct us the way that we pull. They're hard to climb back into the canoe if it tips over and we have to upright it. But as bad as it seems, we need to overcome some of those things in order for us to get through. Now, I'm an avid strong swimmer, maybe medium, but I can only tread water for a little while. And we don't have flippers on or anything else. So it's going to be very hard for us to stay afloat. And as we fight to stay afloat, our strength leaves us. And once that strength starts to leave us, then we become susceptible to going under the water, not being able to maintain our buoyancy. This is what these flotation devices are for. Here I have with me a full-bodied suit. You can see that it's bulky, it's big, it's cumbersome, and it's just not going to cut it as a canoe paddler. You can see the difficulties that you're going to have with it. It's hard to get into, and it's not going to be anything you'd like to utilize unless you're a passenger in the boat on a very bad rainy day. It will provide a lot of protection. Next, we have what is called a jacket, PFD jacket. Again, it's half the size of this minus the legs, but you can still see it's bulky. It's hard to pull a canoe in, but it might be something appropriate for somebody who's a passenger in your boat. Next, we have various PDFs that are worn, that can be worn. This is a standard issued one. The problem with these is if they're not a paddling model, you can be chafed in the arms or anywhere else where you're rubbing against it. And I still have scars to prove that they're hard on you. Probably the best ones to go to are these. This is what we refer to as a harness belt. Harness belt has the inflatable device in it, which inflates when you get into the water, or can be done manually by pulling on the red or yellow handle here. These are great. I've used them in competitions with canoe paddling races and as well as the canoe journey I've used these in. And probably the best one, which I know everybody doesn't like to wear one, and it's one way to probably get everybody to use one, is one of these. This is a vest that is mounted to the waist and sits off to the side. When you pull the ring, it self-inflates and unfolds. The only problem with this is you have to manually take the vest once it inflates and put it over your head. And if you're in trouble, or if you've been knocked unconscious by your head hitting the edge of the canoe as it comes over, you're going to be in trouble. These are the only drawbacks with these. The other drawback is that they're very costly. These you can probably throw in the boat. Maybe somebody will step on them or do something with them. It's not going to hurt them or damage them that much. If somebody were to step on these and puncture the material here, it would make it useless and you'd have to buy a new one. This year and in subsequent years, all of these have to have a whistle attached. If your PFD does not have one, you can go out to any marine sporting goods store and you can buy a whistle with a lanyard for as little as 99 cents to $1.50. Under Washington state law, this is the new requirement for this area. What I have here right now are canoe PDFs that are designed for canoe paddlers. This one from REI, when placed on, allows you to have the movement that you need in the shoulders and the armpits, allows for sufficient room here in the arm area so that you don't get chafed. This particular model here that I'm showing you is one that has been distributed to a lot of our canoe families. It is very inexpensive, very easy to replace, and you could buy probably 6 of these versus the harness or the side belt flotation device. My recommendation is probably one of these would be best utilized because of the change in all of our crews from year to year. A lot of people like to sit on these. These are a little more comfortable. They do allow for a lot of room for the paddler to become accustomed to as they travel. Okay, this particular brand of PDF is one I would recommend. The only bad thing about it is it's almost cost prohibitive. They are running close to, depending on where you buy them, $70 to $100. Most places I talk to will give you 10% discount on quantity if you should buy 10 or more. But these are the ones I like. These are the ones I prefer to use, and I'm going to demonstrate that right now. Again, you're in the water. This is one that has a pill in it which dissolves within 10 seconds. If you need it sooner than that, then you have the handle here that will pull it, and I'm going to demonstrate that right now. With this fully opened, you can see the CO2 canister here. You can see where the pill is affixed in here, the manual pull, the whistle that is attached here already. You can see that there is a manual port here from which to blow air in if you don't want to use the CO2 cartridge. From here, I'll take, and it's going to be difficult, I'll put that over my head. With this securely fastened on here and tight, it's already on and ready to go. This is just for securing your neck into the flotation device a little bit more. This has almost 30 pounds of buoyancy to it, which will hold anybody 260 pounds or heavier fairly easy. So you can see with my frame, body frame, I'm running about 220. It's a good one to utilize. Okay, one of the things that I recommend that everybody have on their canoe, and what everybody should have on a motorized boat, is a throw rope. Believe you me, when I've fallen into the water before in the past, it's been very helpful. And I'll be the first one to say that this has saved, along with my PFD, has saved me from being in the water very long. This simply is a bag with a coiled rope in it. It has a strap on it that will strap, or you can affix it to anything within a canoe. When you need it, simply unsnap it. It's available. Out of one end, you're able to pull the rope out. From here, you attach the rope to yourself, you hold on to it, you pull a little lead line out, and then you toss it to the person. The person is going to be able to grab it. This is almost 25 feet of rope. So it'll help anybody right near your vessel, right near the canoe, right near your boat, to help pull them back and to hold them there until you're able to get back to them. This helps because it leaves them in the water for a shorter period of time. And it's also a lifeline too. I mean, you know, you throw something to somebody that's in the water, they know that they're attached to the boat in some way, and it helps them to realize that help is there for them. Okay, another question that might come up is, what happens if you miss? Well, you're going to have to retrieve the line. The bag has a small weight in the back. You can either coil the line on the deck, or you can loop it around, bring the bag back up with the weight, and attempt to throw it again to the person. And keep doing it until that person is able to get it. What happens when you fall overboard at night as you're trying to make it into your resting place for the evening, and because of tides and weather conditions, you're arriving late at night? And as you're pulling in, one of your people falls overboard. How are they going to be found and identified while they're in the water, other than yelling and screaming? One of the things I've utilized and have used in the past have been personal strobe lights that attach to your life safety vests. With this attached, you reach over, you turn the switch, this charges up and has a little strobe effect to it, which is very effective, and it's very effective for aircraft as they fly over. They're able to see this quite well. If you cannot afford one of these things, for $1.99, you can get a stick, an incandescent stick. Everybody knows what these are like. To use them, you can tie them on to your vest, and they'll just stay right there. When you need them, you reach up, you break them. The chemical reaction inside causes this to glow, and it's very useful. And for close-in areas, like from your support boat, or from your canoe that you've fallen off of or capsized over in, you're going to be able to see the people in the water. The problem is people need to be trained to use these items. These are emergency signaling devices. Here I have a handheld marine signaling flare. With the instructions on this, a flare fired into the air can be seen for miles. A lot of eyes out there because you're going to be on a coastal journey. You'll have a lot of people looking out there, and a lot of people will see this. These are to be used only in emergency situations. Misuse of this for fun or anything else, just to show off or let somebody else see what it's like, could result in a fine or even an arrest by the local authorities. So when you have these, use them only in an emergency situation. If you don't have, or if you're able to, you might be able to get smaller sizes. Again, the difference is distance. What can be seen and what not can be seen. The first one I showed you can be seen for miles. This is a small one, it's portable, it can fit in your pocket or your life vest. If you're in the water, it's easy to use. Unscrew the end with the chain down, and you'll pull down, letting go of the chain immediately, and this will fire around from the top, which is visible for half a mile to 2 miles only. It lasts for a short period of time, and you may have to repeat a number of times as the kit comes with 3 flares in it. Okay, what if it's in the middle of the day? You're out on the water, you're quite a ways from land, maybe Coast Guard's coming, maybe other boats are out there but can't see you and see that you're in distress. Believe you me, being in the water in a small craft is no fun because you're almost invisible to other boats around you. During the day, you can use what are called smoke flares. At night, these flares work great because they're incandescent flares and they light up. This is orange colored smoke that can be seen for miles. And I'll demonstrate this here for you. Okay, again, pull the waterproof seal off. A chain drops down. You'll pull the chain and you'll need to get rid of it by throwing it into the water or on dry land if you happen to make it to dry land. I'll demonstrate this now. Pulling the chain. You can see it only puts out a limited amount of smoke, but it is visible for a long ways. This item can be used on both dry land, as you've seen just now, or water. Okay, let's talk about communications now. For a lot of us, we have cell phones at our disposal. This is a regular cell phone, and this is like my 5th one I've had. They don't work very well in salt water. So you have to keep that in mind, as well as your location. Now, this particular cell phone, along with my plan, offers me the ability to talk in Canada as well. So that's one good thing about it. And it's you'll have to check with your various companies to see what meets your needs for this journey. They're nice and easy to have, that you can keep in contact with your family, relatives on shore. You can call medical aid or assistance readily, but you've got to remember these things don't work well in salt water. I've dropped these in salt water and they quit working immediately. It attacks the electronics in it, corrodes it, and they're no good within a short time that they've been dropped into the water, especially salt water. Another item that we use, this is a little family service radio, 1999, either Walmart, Kmart, has a range of 2 miles, works on 4 AAA batteries. The neat thing about this is that your support boat can have one, you can have one, you can talk on it all day. It's inexpensive to use. If you lose it, if you drop it in the water, it's no problem. They're fairly easy to replace. The frequencies are all the same. You leave it on one certain channel that you need to talk to with your support boat, and you can utilize it all day long if you want. This particular model came in a set of 4, and I've only got one now because I've dropped the others, or they've been exposed to saltwater conditions and have caused them to short out or not work at all. So again, these are great, but like the cell phones, you need to watch them around salt water because salt water corrodes all of the electronics on the inside. Which leads us up to a step higher than that, and that's the VHF Marine Band radios. These are two-way radios. The thing about these things is they have multiple channels, and they also have other items on it that none of these have. Number one, you can call Coast Guard with them. You can be in touch with Coast Guard for any emergencies that arise on the water. You can talk with them, and these particular radios are designed, because they're marine radios, designed to take the salt water around them, the environment, and if you happen to drop one in the water, it's still going to work. It'll still work. This one was dropped in a boat that we were using, and even today it still works. So these radios are just as important. Which one to pick is up to you. Do not depend upon your cell phone as your main source of communications because of your location, the availability of towers in which to communicate, and the conditions that are out there. So if you need to, do not depend upon your cell phone. Rather, depend upon a good family service radio, whether it be inexpensive, such as I have here, or you could go and you could buy the $79 ones, which have a 15-mile radius, or you could go to the portable marine radios that are able to sustain the conditions that you're going to find on the saltwater. Here I have a particular model that I'm going to talk a little bit about and what its capabilities are. This particular model has batteries, disposable batteries that you can put into it. When they run down, merely dispose of them according to local regulations and install new fresh batteries to keep this radio going. It has an antenna. It has a crystal display screen on there where you can see a number of things. It has a on and off switch and volume control in one. And when you turn it on, you may hear a little noise like this, which is a squelch. That's the sensitivity to the radio. And you'll need to adjust that if you hear that screeching noise. Once you've turned it down to where it disappears, then your radio is almost set to go. Now looking on the radio here, you will notice that number 16 shows in the screen here. Number 16 is the channel that everybody should be on for basic hailing and monitoring only. If you wish to speak to somebody on this channel, you'll have to call them by their vessel name, and once the vessel has acknowledged, you need to agree on a channel which to go to. Also on here, you will see a red dot here which shows 16 and 9. Of course, 16 is your general distress communication frequency. 9 is the alternate frequency for ports. So 16 is the one you should be on at all times to talk with one another and to identify a different channel which to go to. For further information on those channels, you're going to have to go into your book and read more about them. Also on here, you have a scan, which you're going to have to enter the channels you would like to look into and scan. You also have a weather alert, which this particular model is set up to receive the local weather station out here and will alert you when weather conditions become severe or when a weather alert is put out for boaters for boat conditions and weather conditions. You also have a little indication on here for 1 watt versus 5 watt. This is for the amount of power that this radio is transmitting on. On some channels, it is mandatory by law that you only transmit with 1 watt capability. That is why the switch is here. Changing to a different channel is by the up and down arrows, and you'll be able to put the frequency or the channel wherever you want by merely pressing the indicating buttons on here. On the side here, you'll see your push to talk button. Pushing it down will transmit, letting it go will allow you to receive. Again, for further information on how to utilize this radio, go to your owner's manual. Become familiar with it, because when you're out there in the middle of the night and you're cold, you're wet, this is going to be difficult. Let me talk about another frequency on there, which is channel 6, which talks about ship's traffic and vessel to vessel radio traffic. A number of years ago on our journey from Keystone to Port Townsend, we were delayed by weather conditions because the waters were too foggy. We got impatient and we left. And it wasn't until we got halfway out there, we didn't know which way we were going because we did not have any GPS, we did not have any compass. The best guess was that the tide was drifting us towards Indian Island, which it did eventually. But what also occurred is that we were in the ship's traffic at Admiralty Inlet, where commercial traffic coming out of Seattle, out in the Strait of Juan de Fuca, was traveling in. These vessels cannot stop soon enough. They can go as far as 8 miles trying to stop before they become dead in the water or still or stopped. 8 miles. And a lot of times in that fog, when we looked up, it was only a matter of 100 yards or so that we were able to see in. Little did we realize that we were in a lot of jeopardy. In monitoring the radio traffic, we heard a signal go out saying, "Pond, pond, pond, pond. Vessels traffic along Admiralty Inlet. Be advised we have small craft in your vicinity." And they gave instructions for them to post lookouts on the bows of the vessels in order to look for us and hopefully wouldn't run over us. But in listening to this traffic, I didn't realize they were talking about us and what a dangerous situation we had placed ourselves in. Having the necessity of these radios, the GPS, and other items will help us in the future and even this next coming journey to keep us safe and out of trouble. In most cases, regular talking will suffice, but in this case, when we utilize this radio to talk with the Coast Guard, we have specific language with which to utilize. Take, for example, an emergency transmission. Most of you have heard the call, "Mayday, Mayday." This is one of the first words that you're going to use to formulate your first initial response to the Coast Guard for assistance. Initially starting this, you will say, "Mayday, Mayday. Canoe requesting assistance in the water." And that's all you need to say at that point, because what you're trying to do at this point is get the attention of Coast Guard radio. If you're off of Port Townsend, then Port Angeles is the one that will answer, or Seattle. They'll come on the radio and say, "Vessel requesting assistance" or "Mayday call, please identify." And you'll provide the information that you're a canoe on a canoe journey, that you're capsized or overturned in rough water conditions, and you need assistance. This is when your knowledge of the area, or better yet, if you're able to get a GPS reading, latitude, longitude, that they're going to ask for in order to get the help to you as soon as possible. In most cases, they will send a helicopter to verify your position and a search vessel either from Port Townsend or Port Angeles to assist you. Other questions asked are, how many souls are there? And you will reply as to how many people there are in the water, and they'll ask for a condition. This condition is important because they're going to need to assess or assign the necessary assets from the Coast Guard stations to respond to your scene. Also will be a determination as to how soon of a response needs to be heading in your direction based upon your location and your situation. Others in the area, after you have talked to Coast Guard on this, Coast Guard will get back on the radio and issue an alert. And they will say, pon, 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 pon. This is a Coast Guard alert notifying ship's traffic and the location. And they'll give the location, and they will ask other vessels to lend a hand or to lend assistance. And that's where the location is required, and that's where the location is needed, because they need to get a fixed position of where you're at in order to arrive there. When the situation is alleviated and it's all done, or they need to put out additional information, they will come back on the radio and say, security, security, security. This is Coast Guard Station, Port Angeles, or Seattle sector, with updated information or to advise boaters of hazards to navigation. Those are the responses. But remember, on utilizing the radio, what you want to do is get on there, notifying with the command of Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. This is canoe such and such in the water off of such and such station, or give a location, and they will respond back to you. And during this conversation, they will establish additional information. The main thing is to get your message out there so that they can acknowledge it, and afterwards they will start getting information from you. Weather conditions. You know, we live in one of the most beautiful places anywhere that I've ever been. And on a day like this, who would not want to be out on the water, partaking in our canoe journey? But like anything else, we have inclement weather up here. And one day it could be sun shining with a light breeze, and the next day it would be wind blowing, heavy rains, and it'd be cold. So we need to address these issues as we go along with our canoe journey. What should we have and what should we not have? Obviously, on a day like today, with the sun being out and as bright as it is, everybody, including me, being as dark as I am, still needs some type of protection from the elements. Starting with the eyes, because of the glare and everything that's out on the water, we need to have some type of protection for our eyes. So with that, what we need to have are sunglasses. Could be either kind. Cheap ones, expensive ones. Cheap ones would be better, because if you drop them in the water, you're not going to get upset. Another thing to have is some type of head cover or headgear. A baseball cap is fine. Or better yet, maybe a hat which covers a large portion of your head, neck, and shoulders to give you the protection you need from the sun. For a lot of paddle pullers, they're not going to be in the sun for a little while. They're going to be in there for hours. And as anybody knows, if you're out in the sun for hours, you're going to get sunburn. So to overcome that, you're going to need some type of sunscreen lotion with an SPF rating of 30 or more. I say 30 or more because of the time you're going to be exposed to the sun and the time you're going to be out there pulling. Apply it generously. Use it generously. And apply it whenever you need to. Sometimes it's an hour, sometimes it's every 2 hours. But keep yourself replenished with this. I've seen too many canoe paddlers at the end of the day come in and say, well, I got a little bit red, and have to rush them to the emergency room because they have been sunburned badly. And it's ruined their whole trip. So we don't want that to happen. We want to make sure that you're going to be out there day after day, enjoying yourself, being a part of the journey and being a part of the crew. Now, a number of canoe journeys before, I had a number of guys come to me and talk to me about their son being sunburned, and what they had on was a white t-shirt, and the sun was bright enough for the last couple of days that it actually burned them through the white t-shirt they were wearing. So when bringing the appropriate gear, you might want to throw in a shirt or something like that that says it acts as a sun shield, and it should be marked accordingly on the label. Those are going to be helpful. Let's talk about now about hydration, which is going to coincide with a lot of our warm weather or hypothermia, meaning the body is overheating. One of the best ways to combat that is to dress accordingly. Have a nice hat on you, have a shirt on you. I know a lot of us like to wear short-cut sleeves or tank tops or stuff like that, but it does not adequately protect us from the sun. And while we're trying to protect ourselves, let's talk about hydration. This is 1.5 liters of water. This is how we need at least 2 liters of water per day to actually survive. We get that from the food we eat, from the items that we drink throughout the day. But because we're paddle pullers and because we're going to be pulling for long periods of time, we need to keep our water levels or our hydration levels high in order that we're not going to dehydrate. If we dehydrate, adds other complications, resulting in serious health conditions. So remember to keep yourself hydrated at all times. Water is best. If you're physically exerting yourself, Gatorade or another product along that line will suffice. Energy drinks I do not recommend because it's mostly sugar and caffeine. And when you're out there, all it's going to do is help with your dehydration. The energy level is going to be there for a while, and then you're going to crash. No energy drinks. Gatorade or something equivalent, and water. Those are your 2 main things. And to also keep yourself well fed and eat the right foods. Continuing on, we need to also talk about immediate changes and conditions as they relate to us here in the Puget Sound. At any given time, the wind can come up, waves can be generated by the wind, causing the crew to have to fight the waves, the crew exposed to the cold weather, hypothermia, and getting into trouble and delaying their trip as they travel. Always we've had an afternoon wind that picks up. These are things that the skipper needs to be aware about and needs to relate to the crew as the journey progresses. Times I've been out there in the water have been sunny, and in the afternoon they've turned to windy, cold evenings where we've had to actually don jackets. Also out here, we have specific locations in here based upon the tide that would cause problems with your journey. The Puget Sound was formed generations ago or eons ago by glacial flow here. A lot of areas were scooped out and debris deposited in separate areas, especially amongst the islands. We have debris under the water where it forces the water to the surface, and it looks like you're going through rapids. And if you're not careful with them, they can take and whip your boat around in all different directions. What'll happen also is if your crew has the ability to, they'll have to power through it, thereby increasing their fatigue when they're out of it. Those things need to be looked at. Your journey needs to be planned, and you need to be aware of these things as you travel these waters. Some journeys that I've been on, we've been able to read the weather reports and know ahead of time of what time we need to depart our location. Depending upon the tide and the weather, sometimes we have to leave 2, 3 in the morning. Sometimes we have to hold off until late afternoon. But in any case, all of these things need to be taken into consideration as we travel on. Veteran skippers know this, and they should pass that on to the crew members wherever they go. We've been on one journey where we knew what was going to happen. We got in the middle of our journey. The weather changed to stormy. We pulled in, we changed our clothes into our inclement weather clothes, and we had a nice journey into our next rendezvous location. Others didn't, and they suffered. They suffered because they were exposed to the elements. And again, we're doing this because it is part of our culture, and we want it to be a good, happy occasion, not a hard one. Cotton shirts, cotton pants, while they're light, airy, provide some comfort, when we're exposed or they get into a watery condition, have a tendency to cling to our skin and make it difficult for us to move. If you're in the water, it means you have to struggle harder just to keep yourself above the water. So cotton, while it is nice to have on a nice, dry, sunny day like it is, on a cold, rainy day, it's not going to offer you any protection at all. It's going to add to some of your problems. Here with me are a number of items that I keep with me all the time because of the inclement weather that we have out here. This is a bib pant overall, which is waterproof, which means it is windproof. As long as we can cut the wind, we can get through some of the elements out here. But this is also insulated with a little bit of material inside to also keep me warm. Both of these, in contrast, help when I'm out there in the cold elements. I also have a jacket that is waterproof and windproof as well. This complements the bib pants, or it doesn't have to be bib at all. It can be just waist-drawn pants to utilize in this. Both of these together provide me with almost 100% protection. Now, a majority of our body heat is lost through the head, through the top of the head for that matter. And if you have a hat on or something like that, it may do for a while. But again, you get into inclement weather and it starts raining or it gets really cold out. You'll need some type of fleece covering to help retain your body heat. This is just a little head cap that I got at a local sporting goods store, and it's been very helpful with that. They're very inexpensive. And last but not least, some type of gloves. These are neoprene gloves, which means they'll absorb the water, but at the same time, they're going to keep my hands warm. That's kind of the key word there, warm, because when we're out there for a while, doesn't matter what we're doing, we're still going to lose body heat to the elements out there, and we're going to get cold. Just more stuff for your bag to take, more things to consider while you're out there. How many of you gone on the canoe journey only to find your backpack or your little bag floating in the water that has generated in the canoe from waves or rain? I have, and let me tell you, it's miserable. What they have on the market now is what is called a dry bag. It's a bag that is waterproof and sealable so that it stays waterproof, and it keeps all your stuff nice and dry on the inside, so when it comes time to use them and to have them, they're going to be dry and ready to use. So the next time I go out and I get thrown in the water, I know I'm going to have some dry clothes in this particular bag. What I want to do now is demonstrate how this bag is used and how to make it waterproof. Very simple. Positioning the bag where you put your items in, you seal it up or you close it up. The little lip above the belt here, you fold that over the black part and merely roll the bag down 1 or 2 times until you feel comfortable with it, and reach around and pull the locks together, and your bag is now sealed, watertight, and your clothes are going to stay dry. Okay, say we've had somebody fall into the water. By the time you get around back to the individual, they've been in there 10, 15 minutes at the most. Now that this person is in the water, we're going to have to talk about hypothermia. Hypothermia is the body's reaction to its surrounding, where we lose body heat from our core. The surface is no problem. It's when it gets to the core of our body that we start to have problems. A first sign of that is constant shivering. Now, I'm not talking about shivering when you first get in the shower and it's a little bit of shivering. I'm talking about shivering all over your body violently. This is an indication of the body's attempt to regenerate heat that it's not able to make in the water. Let's talk about a number. 98.9. 98.9 is the standard body temperature for you, me, and almost everybody else out here as being normal. If we deviate from that just a few degrees, we start to go into hypothermia. If we go 5 degrees below 98.9, we're in trouble. And at that point, it leads to hypothermia and possibly death. Our body is able to maintain the heat in us for a little while, but in the waters of Puget Sound, in some places, they're very cold, and we need to be aware of that. You need to take care of matters first, and this is what you need to do. Number one, these people need to get into a dry location as soon as possible. And as you can see on the water, it's going to be very difficult. So you need to be prepared for such incidences. Your escort boat should be near at hand to give you some support. These people need to get out of their wet clothes into some type of dry clothes or a blanket so that they can start regenerating heat. Now, you don't want to put them into a hot tub or anything else like that, because that will add other complications to them. They need to be warmed up gradually and slowly. Providing these people with something warm to drink, whether it be tea, coffee, or even hot water, has to be given in small amounts. You want to bring their body temperature up slow, not fast, because the body reacts violently to it. And while we're talking about something to drink, let's talk about alcohol. Alcohol should not be given to any of these people because it does not allow them to warm themselves out. It rather constricts their blood vessels and their capillaries, decreasing the amount of blood flowing into their body. So alcohol is out. The same way with drugs. But we don't need to talk much about that because this canoe journey is drug and alcohol free. On another note, let's talk about the 50 rule. The 50 rule is essentially this. 50 is for the degrees of water that you're in or submerged in, which is about what Puget Sound is during the summer months. The 50 rule also states that in this temperature of water, you will last as long as 50 minutes until almost unconsciousness. It also says that in this temperature, under the 50 rule, you're able to swim only a minimum or a maximum, depending on how you look at it, of 50 yards, which is 150 feet. So if the shoreline is a mile away, then you know that your chances of reaching it are impossible, and you need to consider other options. While we're on the subject of inclement conditions, let's talk about riptides. Riptides occur naturally on the shore with wave action. Some people call it undertow. Essentially what this does is it takes you places you don't want to go. And the bad thing about it is that it's hard to swim against. Rule of thumb on this is that you go with the flow until it stops and then change direction and swim in a different direction around it. This may take you a little ways from your canoe, It may take you a little ways from your support boat, and it may take you a little ways from the shore. But with your PFD firmly attached and treading water, you should have no problem at all. Fighting it will cause exhaustion, and it could lead to an undertow which could pull you under and be lost to the sea. Moving on, let's talk about navigation. And navigation is one of the critical aspects of this journey, but maybe in some cases not that important, because what we're going to be involved here with is coastal navigation, meaning we're not going to be on the open ocean. We're going to be near some recognizable landmass that we've been to before and that we can readily identify. Because of that, a lot of these things like the compass and this particular item here, which you can plot a course and shoot a course with this, are almost, well, they can be utilized, but they're almost useless out here because you can look up and see exactly where you're at. But what about if you can't see because of weather conditions? What if you can't see because of nighttime conditions, or something is blocking your view? Well, for that, what we have and what we've come up with over the last decade or so is called GPS. GPS is an acronym which stands for Global Positioning Satellites. This instrument is this mini computer which, when turned on, is able to read and identify several satellites that orbit the Earth in a stationary pattern. These signals go up, and the time it takes from the signal here to reach the satellite is what is used to measure your location. Time, distance, speed. That's used to tell exactly this little machine here where you're supposed to be at. And what it will tell you when it comes in is that you're at a longitude and latitude position. This particular one, you can enter your destination site based upon GPS. You can enter it on your past trip if you need to backtrack on it. And it also gives you a waypoint. Whereas if you enter a known location with latitude and longitude, it will plot your course. And as you move along, it will tell you if you're off course or if you're on course. What this particular model does not provide is a picture of the area that you're traveling in, which pinpoints your exact location, like a plotter in a vessel. What I have here is an updated Garmin, which has the maps in it. And if you could look at it closely, it's showing our location here where we're at this point and at this moment. These are being readily used by a lot of people now because it provides the most updated information. And if you're like anybody else, I'm not too worried about the lat and long. I just want to know where I'm at right now. So these, with the map in here that shows you where you're at, will give you a good reading and a good location of where you're at. The only thing is costs. These, at the time they were introduced into the market, were only $120 thereabouts. This particular model, including the programming to put the map in here, is exceeding close to $400. So depending upon what you utilize, you can utilize what is best available on the market, which will tell you where you're at, or you could use just the bare minimums and get by with. That depends upon how much you wish to spend on these items, what your budget is, what you're able to utilize.
In the event that your canoe flips over, you'll need to know how to roll it. First of all, Get people on either side of the canoe. Have some people push up while others push down. This should roll the canoe to the side of the people that are pushing up. Next, rock the canoe back and forth in order to splash as much water out as you can. This is only possible with certain canoes. Then, get someone inside the canoe and start bailing water as fast as possible. People are going to be cold and wet, so they need to get back in the canoe as soon as they can. Finally, when enough water has been bailed out of the canoe using buckets or hands or whatever you have at your disposal, get people back in the canoe and back on your journey. Knowing how to roll a canoe is an important part of your training for the canoe journey, and everyone should practice doing so before going out on the water. It's going to be difficult, especially if you're not wearing a PFD.
Oh, what happened?
Well, when I was in the water trying to get back into the canoe rolled a little bit and my leg went underneath the canoe and scraped right across the barnacles. That's part of the problems about trying to get back into the canoe, to keeping it from rolling and getting it, timing it just right to get your weight up over the gunnel to be able to roll in. But that's all part of the training, is to get that timing down and what it feels like when you're cold and shivering, to have the extra strength to be able to pull yourself up and over the canoe. Okay.
So in closing, let me bring these final points up. Our main emphasis is to make sure that, number one, you wear your PFD, you protect yourself from the elements, meaning you stay dry and warm. You learn to use your GPS, you learn to use your two-way communications, and above all, you protect yourself from the elements and the sun. And always, always stay hydrated. And last but not least, paddles up. Let's have a good, safe journey.
Ay 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 hey ay ay hey ay ay hey ay hey.
Ay 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 hey ay ay hey ay ay hey ay hey. Ay 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 hey ay ay hey ay ay hey ay ay hey.